Weight. Today's ancient artifact is a balance pan weight. I'm Brad Hafford, archaeologist at the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm here in the field at Tel El Mukayyar, the ancient city of Ur. Weights are among my most favorite objects because my research tends to focus on trade routes and exchange and the basis of money, things like this. And really, this little unassuming stone, and it's very difficult to see because it is so small, but this is representative of the foundation of commerce itself. Now, that's a very grandiose statement, so I kind of need to back it up. The point is that value was often determined by weight, and we can still see traces of that today. Of course, we sell certain objects by weight, that's pretty obvious, but even many current monetary units reflect the idea that they were based in weights long ago. So think of the British pound or the Israeli shekel or, well, the Italian lira before they went to the euro. These are all words that were units of weight. So in order to understand how much something might be worth, we needed to know the amount. Sometimes that was weight, sometimes it was volume, length, things like this. So units of measure were extraordinarily important, and they came about very early on. And this was part of what we call the urban revolution, though I think weights and measures might start even before we have cities. So all of this, to me, is particularly fascinating, and it boils down to objects like this. Most weights that we have found here at Ur, and in fact over most of Mesopotamia, are very small. This one is only 1.46 grams. That's 1/6 of the Mesopotamian shekel, which was 8.4 grams. Now, if you multiply this by 6, you're going to come up with around 8.76, somewhere in there, and that is a little bit heavy, but there was variance around it. They couldn't be absolutely accurate, and we tend to find that they vary 5% either side of the target. So that means the Mesopotamian shekel is somewhere between 8.0 and 8.8 grams. This one is on the heavy side, but it still fits in with that. And it is small and oblong, almost like a flattened American football shape maybe. It's a bit narrower than that. Technically, in the world of studying weights, we call this a sphenoid. Sphenoid means sling bullet shape, so it's a lot like a sling bullet that might have been fired off, but this one's too small for that sort of thing anyway. And we find them in sequences, so we can measure them and find the unit of 8.4 and all these different fractions and multiples of it. But about 80% of the weights that have been found here at Ur, and there are a heck of a lot of them, more than 600 just from the early excavations in the 1920s and 30s, most of those, the 80%, are under 10 shekels. So they're weighing something rather small. And what was that? Well, primarily, the most important thing for them to weigh in those small amounts was silver. Silver was really a form of currency. It wasn't in everyone's possession, so it was more of maybe an elite currency or one used for larger purchases. Most people could get hold of it if they really needed it, maybe trading in things like grain. Grain doesn't last very long, so it's not a good currency, but it was a kind of currency. But the majority of the economic texts that began more than 5,000 years ago tend to evaluate things in weights of silver. So, silver was quite valuable. 1 shekel of that 8.4 grams was about the pay for a whole month for a worker, someone digging a canal or something like that. So this 1/6 would be, well, a little bit less than a week's pay. So you can see that they would have to weigh them in small amounts. Now they fascinate me because they tell us all about this economic angle, and most of the excavations have been conducted here within the city walls. I'm very near the sacred zone where the ziggurat is, and Woolley dug almost exclusively inside this larger mound. He dug a lot of domestic houses to the south, and he found a lot of weights there, but he didn't document very well exactly where they came from. Sometimes he found them in graves, and we know about that. But we have excavated several houses of the more common people in the more recent excavations, and in every case we have found at least one weight. So this tells me that most people were engaged in this weighing activity. In a way that seems surprising, because you might think that only a few people would do that, the ones with access to silver, but maybe more people had access to it and needed these weights. Almost every household seems to have had some weights. Well, this year we are starting to explore beyond the city walls, and the question is, how did people live outside versus inside? And so far we've only done 2 weeks of excavation out there, but it looks like the buildings are very similar. They're not built in a less efficient way or anything. One theory is that more wealthy people were protected inside the city and poorer people lived outside. That doesn't seem to be the case. And this weight was found outside the city wall. So it tells me that the people out there were also engaged in the same kind of accounting. And to me, that's very interesting, because it's starting to show us something about life outside the city. Of course, this might have been used in any period. It was found very near the surface, and so maybe it doesn't compare with the old Babylonian material that we're mostly comparing to. It might be Kassite out there, there's some Neo-Babylonian, we're not down to the old Babylonian, but still the presence of a weight shows me that people are engaged in weighing, even outside the city walls. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed looking a bit into the foundation of commerce with me and this ancient weight, and I hope you'll join me again on the next Ancient Artifacts of Artifactually Speaking.